Hello, my beautiful co-creators. Lilou here, and I'm in Colorado with amazing, juicy Malcom. It's so good to see
It's
you.
nice to meet you. Nice to have you here.
Thank you, thank you. You are so inspiring and so creative, and
Thank
such
you.
a
Thank you.
conduit for something amazing and divine to take place on
Well,
this
cool.
on
I
this
use
space.
I
What
use the
happens
word
here?
garden hose.
Uh huh.
All we do is screw ourselves into that ever abundant source of energy, source of spirituality, and just go. My biggest thing is, as you progress through your career, is, it goes from an ego thing to now it's just get out of the way and let God go through me. There's no.
Yeah.
He has a plan. I have a plan, and let's see if we can get it done together, right?
But I like to joke about this because you look more like a American footballer than a painter. So tell us about this journey, because you were actually a football player.
Yeah, it
American
was.
football.
Yeah. It kind of all through my life growing up was kind of a battle between sports and art, and my parents were very anti the athletic route, and they kept pushing me into the music and art, and so. After college, I didn't get drafted as high as I wanted to, and by then I was already starting to experience the inner peace, that inner drive, that inner just that contentment, that zen that you get in when you paint. And I didn't want to give it up, and I was always starting to make a good living, and I realized, hey, this is really what I'm supposed to be doing. The other was just kind of a platform to get me there. And, all the training, all the goal setting, all that kind of stuff that comes from sports, I've kind of just taken that into the art field. It's kind of like get up in the morning, set a goal, get it done, and do it. So.
Because I heard it was pretty impressive when people see you painting,
Painting,
this
right,
the
yeah.
energy that you're moving.
Again, it's just one of those things. My whole story began with live on stage with Carlos Santana in Las Vegas in front of about 120,000 people. And it was an MTV audience, and I thought that they wanted me to come and do the poster. And then I thought, no, they want me to come out and just paint him. I didn't know they wanted me on stage. So I had 90 minutes to do the portrait, and it was kind of like I'd never really done it before, and it's kind of like, that's what I'm talking about. There's where, in my opinion anyway, the athletic training and confidence, inner confidence comes. And before, you just have to check out, get out of the way, and as they say, let God come through. And so in 90 minutes, the portrait of Carlos was done in front of 120,000 screaming fans, and I was hooked. From then on to live painting on stage
How
with.
much adrenaline was
Oh,
flowing on your
huge.
body?
Oh, huge. And the cool part about it is Carlos is a very spiritual guy. We went back to his trailer and talked for like 5 hours all about reincarnation and his spiritual journey coming from a Catholic background, and it was pretty incredible.
So
Wow.
how did you then, because you have painted some amazing artists like
been-
Stevie Wonder. I mean, how did this came about?
Um,
Right after
this
Carlos?
was well, no, the Carlos thing started a whole progression of things, and then the Grammys and the Music Care Foundation kind of thing. This was a fundraiser in LA a few years ago where he was accepting some humanitarian award for his work, and he was accepting the award and he was giving thanks, and it was feeling definitely filled with gratitude. And then the back curtain just opened up, and there was his band. He just went right into My Cherie Amor, and the crowd went crazy, and a 3-hour concert took place. So that's where this painting came from. So again, though, backstage afterwards, what a spiritual, wonderful, talk about open conduit. Wow.
Yeah.
After the event, his manager brought him over, and he was gracious enough to sign it for me. So that's like the foremost piece in my collection. I've always been a Stevie Wonder fan, being a musician myself, and growing up and just imagining what has gone through his whole process as he was 12 years old. Just amazing. Yeah, pretty cool.
It's very alive. I love all the colors and how they're distributed, and it's
quick.
just
It just comes out of me. It's quick. That was about a 2 or 3 hour piece. So that had a little more
That's
time.
it?
But yeah, I get the spatula out, the drywall knife, and just get going on it. And you got to realize there are no mistakes. In something like this, there are no mistakes. You just paint right over it, keep going, and you can't you can't sit around and wonder if you're doing the right thing. It just has to be totally inspired, and
yeah, that's how it feels. And Bono too.
Oh yeah, talk about wow. You don't even need to say anymore. What he's doing for the world right now through his music, and through his just the way he's living his life. What an amazing human being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love, love, love,
Oh,
pure
yeah.
love.
Pure love. Yeah.
And Mr. Gorbachev.
And Mr. Gorbachev, this may have been, well, there's been some wonderful, wonderful things in my career, but being on stage with him, this was quite a while ago. This was probably 10 years ago, 8 years ago. So, just imagining what he has gone through wow, behind what closed doors, what information, what were they thinking, and then to see him just totally, wow, kind of unite everything through separation, however you want to word it, but wonderful, wonderful, and just charismatic. Just through his interpreter, we talked all about the use of color, and you want to know about my kids, and it was just cool.
So how much do you have to know about them before doing the painting, or that
it
just
really,
is not important?
it sometimes it's not important, but sometimes it is. I mean, I read a lot about him before we painted this, because I got to admit, I was very, very intimidated at this time. This was like one of those, what am I doing up here with somebody like this? And I didn't want to do just another typical portrait. They said they wanted my contemporary color, and they wanted an American's viewpoint of Mikkel. So that's what they got. And he enjoyed it. He thoroughly enjoyed it. In fact, he got a copy of it. So
how do you do this? Do you set an intention when you're ready to paint like that? Which space do you get into? What is the moment where you tip into something very creative and open channel?
I meditate a lot, and I'm not saying I meditate, but you kind of learn different. I have like gimmick tricks kind of thing where I just have to check out. A lot of times it's kind of a humming. It's an inner humming. It's like, what's that kid's baseball movie where the pitcher starts singing, to get in the groove? I can't. It's a Walt Disney movie, but anyway, it's just, and then you just go and you just kind of wait for that moment to just, all of a sudden you go deaf on each side, and you're focused on that, and then you kind of come back when it's finished. And
so you're kind of asleep, but not asleep, but you're in a trance kind of state, and then you wake up from it, and you're like, whoa, is that?
Yeah, pretty much, because it has to be instinctual. I mean, you don't really think about, and when you put colors together, juxtaposition of colors, complementary colors, light and dark, whatever, it comes from training. It's like doing scales. If you're a piano player, you spend years and years doing scales, da 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 da. But then once you get to that point where it becomes you and spirit takes over, then you're out of the way, and all that training, which just takes care of our hands, kind of that's when all that training steps in. But when I teach classes, people, I don't teach painting the traditional way. I get kids to use whatever instrument they want to use. I want them to stand back away from the canvas. I want it more gestural. I want it not, just moving your fingers. I want it, total expression with the body and that sort of thing. So it's totally instinctive. People ask me how and why. I don't really know the answer.
Yeah. So why these artists and famous people versus?
When you talk about spirituality, and you and I were just talking about celebrities that attain either through experimentation or attain some sort of level where they're, openly discussing about their spiritual path. Who more than the Beatles? I mean, wow, did that totally bring that whole Eastern Indian philosophy and influence into our country, into our culture? What they all did, and it's just such great, iconic imagery anyway. I'm doing a series for a publisher too. So, and then Led Zeppelin just came from another live on stage performance where, when he's in that pose, you're not telling me he's just not checked out.
Or checked in?
Checked in, checked out. Carlos always used to kind of look to the heavens, so to speak, in his terminology, and wait for the angels, invite the angels to come through him. And you can literally, I was on stage with him for probably 6, 7, 8 concerts. And after I knew that, you could actually tell when he was out of the way, Yeah. Everybody has their own terminology, their own belief system, but everybody, even athletes, same thing. Once they get in that zone or whatever, and that's kind of why I kept painting all the athletes and that sort of thing, because I was always really, because I know myself when I played, not to that level of, like a Joe Montana or anything, but once they get in that zone, they don't know what's going on. Yeah. It becomes a totally quiet world. All they see is the receiver breaking open. All they know is to get it there. Same here.
Yeah, like I know you painted Pete Sampras too. I mean, tennis players, they don't see the ball coming at them in the same way than we see it.
No. No, Pete, I actually have done a lot with Pete, know him very well. He's one of the biggest ones that says, I'm not really a real spiritual guy. I say, yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. I mean, wow. The difference of hearing him hit the ball live on I painted at the U.S. Open live on the court, and the difference, the sound of the ball when he hits it versus anybody else, and it's just, you have to be able to move that fast, that instinctively. You have to be. That's what I'm. We're nothing but flesh and bones, except for the spirit that drives us, right? And he's
But a lot of people have forgotten that life force. Or just
we all forget it here and there throughout our lives too. There's times when we all wonder why is our life kind of like stagnating or sliding or whatever you want to call it, and it's because we're out of whack, out of sync.
So how did you transition from painting those famous people to now painting someone or somebody or an avatar like Buddha? How did that happen?
Well, I grew up overseas in India, and I taught in China for a while, so I've always been really thrilled by the imagery, and also the spirituality. I was fortunate enough to be, we meditated in ashrams at 13 in India, and my father taught in China, and I went to a couple monasteries with them and ate with the monks, and so it just, and I was already on a spiritual pathway anyway, and then my father passed away a few years ago, and that really, really drove me to, that's one thing he said kind of before. We used to have these great chats over coffee, and he said, your sports stuff is wonderful, your music stuff is wonderful, but you're just painting pretty pictures, recording history. Do something from your heart, do something from your soul. And so then this whole thing came about my childhood in India and all the imagery, and then as, there's going to be a progression, as you'll see, a more meditative, watercolor translucent style that has many layers, which is purely meditation itself, because it's like slow building up of the colors, 20, 30 washes versus this kind of stuff, which is like, and I love a contemporary look on ancient wisdom, and that's kind of where I'm really going now. Is, there's a lot of wonderful imagery out there through the Oriental philosophy, Buddhism, and through the Eastern Indian philosophy, and Christianity too.
So it's not so much about religion, huh?
Well, it's, religion, that's that word that always scares me. It's spirituality to me. But, I grew up, it's more about just finding something. My whole idea is, with the art, is, when the human mind, when it stops to look at something, it changes the energy of the person watching it, right? Mm-hmm. And so if everybody on the planet stops to look at a painting for 30 seconds, they'll have one of those experiences where they're just, they're in that zen, they're radiating beauty and tranquility. And I think if there's enough art on the walls, it'll help change the energy of the world. That's kind of my philosophy.
And I love that you use gold. And
the gold is such a regal, rich. Yeah, I mean, it's just the gold. Yeah, it's really been kind of fun. A lot of textural stuff. This comes from some of the things I saw in China. Mm-hmm. And the horses have a spirituality. They have they've played a major role throughout history.
Yeah. And what about this one?
This one is my little guy. I have a 1-year-old son that, my wife is Jamaican, and we both have some Oriental in us. And this is, Remember You're a Beautiful Child, it's the name of a song that a very good friend of mine wrote. And so we needed something, some imagery, and that came one morning. He was laying in bed, and I just took a picture and then tilted it upright, and he looks very much like Buddha. He has very Oriental eyes and a little pouty mouth, and so, yeah, that's kind of the thought process, kind of that zing.
The spark?
Yep, the spark. The juice, as you would call it.
Yeah, the juice, because these are very juicy. Tell us about this one.
This is Krishna, kind of the song of love. This comes from my time in India, Krishna, and just, it's a really fascinating piece of history, and also just what it stands for, and use of the gold leaf again. I saw a lot of these murals on the walls in Ajanta and Ellora, the caves and that sort of thing, and it just came from that. And that's really, it's more of a spiritual, pretty picture piece. It doesn't have any huge meaning.
So how do you, I mean, are these all phases throughout? Because here
Phases.
we're actually at Malcom Church here in Colorado, so you're exposing here. You're not, this is not always exposed here.
No, I had a little gallery here for a while, but this is a show that'll probably travel. Right now, it's already in discussions. It's already being booked for Harlem in New York. I was out there about 3 weeks ago, kind of doing the initial thing, and I think that, to take this to places where there's groups of various cultures, I think it's kind of cool because I think there's something here for everybody. I think it's going to speak to everybody. I don't care, race, creed, color, economic, whatever. It's kind of, doesn't matter your demographics. It's going to hopefully speak to you. So, yeah, there are different phases here.
There's different phases right now, like we're entering this whole prayer.
This is real soft. Yeah, and this is a series when my dad passed away. He really affected me. He adopted me into the world. I was just fortunate enough to have been around the world several times. By the time I was 16, I've been to every continent basically. And so I came up with what I'm calling the World Prayer Series. And it's, as you'll see as we go along here, it's focusing on Buddha right now, but just different cultures and different people in the act of communing with their higher God, whatever you want to call it, So expressing their spirituality. So I'm calling it the World Prayer Series. And it's basically a gratitude series. That's a better way to put it. I mean,
Yeah, because gratitude and prayer is really
yeah, it's similar but different. Yeah. So.
But it has that communion with that energy
there you
that
go,
we all
communing
can
with-
access.
That's correct. That's correct. And this is more manifestation kind of a thing. This is when you're in that zone and you're manifesting an idea, and this is kind of more or less the seed of the idea coming into fruition. Yeah, that's what that one's
So
about.
do you feel like when you're doing this, do you feel you're communicating with Buddha, or that you feel its energy, and how does that feel?
Not necessarily with Buddha, but maybe the teachings of Buddha, more or less. It's more becoming one, becoming ethereal, becoming weightless, I mean, that's kind of what we're all, and I think anyway, is when you reach that highest level where you really are just ethereal. You're just a spirit, just floating. You have no walls. Your spirit. And I really felt this when my father passed away. Everyone left the room, and he actually was there, and I was holding his hand, talking, and he just went. And I felt it out the top of my head. And I actually, to be honest, I feel him more now than he was here. And it's really, so it's all what, we are spirits that are renting these bodies in this lifetime. And that's kind of, so what I was after is, I'm getting chills right now. But no, you know what I'm talking about. When you achieve, and at least me, I have times where I'm really in tune, a period of 2 or 3 months, where wow, you're just there. And then all of a sudden, ka-ching, ka-ching, slip, bang, wheels fall off, and hey, you're a human being again, and I got, Anyway, but it's when you get back into that, wow, and I remember we lived in northern India, and we had a huge Tibetan colony that, had fled Tibet to live in India, but we were only a few miles from Tibet. And just the old women in the morning and in the evening, just, rubbing that prayer wheel and chanting. And we used to walk, hours and hours through the villages listening to that. It was just an incredible thing to do when you're 14 years old. It'll kind of change your life a little bit.
Wow, yes. And how about here?
And this is more
corn?
Yeah, I currently live in Puerto Vallarta a lot of the year, the winter months. And I was just intrigued again by living amongst a different culture and the spirituality of, maybe the Mayan and Aztec kind of thing, where their gratitude revolved around the harvest. I mean, so here I call this the corn maiden, and their gratitude was giving thanks for the season, a good season, and they use the corn for all sorts of things, clothing, food, feeding the animals, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then this is actually something I saw, not exactly in this way, but going back to being in India, we used to kind of sneak out and go sit in the monasteries up in northern India and into Nepal. And this was something a vision I saw of a monk praying at sunset, and it's something I'll never forget. And this is just my interpretation, design-wise, of what I saw. This one's real powerful for me.
It's amazing how you're blending to the energy with nature, and all is becoming one through this painting. We can feel it.
You know, it's just the flow.
Yep.
You know, it's all, and that's kind of what I'm trying to get through all these. It's like flow up into the focal point, and the focal point is always light, which is spirituality, you know. And this is, probably more Persian, more, you know, Western India into Pakistan. I spent some time there. You know, the nose ring, and this is another, you know, the blue is a sign of spirituality in Hindu religion. Just something I saw that I had to paint.
Yeah, so do you take pictures sometimes,
Yes.
and then you go
And
back
actually,
and...
a lot of these are my father's pictures, too. He was a
perfect.
very, very good photographer. He left me his whole inventory of photographs, so that was really, that's why it's kind of
So
special.
you could tap into his
Yes,
energy when
yeah,
you're doing it,
yeah.
and asking him to guide you also, I
Yeah,
guess.
that's very true. And this is actually my wife, and, you know, just kind of a rendition of more the Caribbean, Polynesian kind of feel. You know, the garb, and again, the lotus to me is the life thing. It's like the flower blossoming. It's like, again, you plant the seed and it comes to fruition. So that's...
Do you find it's easier to do it with somebody that you met than somebody that you haven't met to paint them?
Probably, yeah,
to their
definitely. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Because otherwise, I think it just becomes a pretty picture. Yeah, I use that a lot, but sometimes I just think I'd rather have a photograph, you know, and that's why there are photographers around.
This
These are-
series
yeah.
is spectacular. Is that where you're at right now?
Mhm. This is where I'm at. This is empowerment. This is like when you have the flow coming through you. This is, and I use the kind of the metamorphosis of the butterfly, of light coming out of the cocoon, and you know, that kind of a thing. And when you just reach up there in kind of a kingly, regal kind of a headdress, you know, implied up there. Plus, this is fun. This is the gestural, the use of the palette knife, and you know, the energy that exudes from it is what I'm after. You know.
When you say you take a day to do those, or not even?
Well, you know, yeah, it's, you know, the thought process is a long time, maybe, but you know, when it's right, and you just go. And this is a painting entitled "Walk More Softly." Jock Bartley from Firefall fame wrote a song that's kind of in a program to help kids in the school system kind of feel like they're responsible for their lives and also the earth. So, you know, I kind of chose the American Indian and their respect for the earth, and, you know, manifesting the spirits and the nature from the earth as they walk through.
He's flying.
Yeah. It's kind of a dance, a ceremonial dance. And this is enlightenment. Again, I use that source of light where it comes from an idea and manifests. And this is kind of just opening up to the heavens or to the inner and just letting it go.
This is our job, really, huh?
Huh?
Letting it go. That's our job.
That's it. That's the thing.
And this one is just a pure beauty.
This one, this is more of an ancestral thing. Here's, you know, it's kind of a dance of a culture, and maybe this one dancing and celebrating on this earthly plane, and yet there's another, you know, daughter or something, a son coming along. That's kind of what this one's about.
Or even a guardian.
Yeah, a guardian angel. Just another maybe twin spirit kind of thing, if you believe in everyone has a twin flame kind of a thing, yeah. This was purely an inspiration. I don't know. That's why I'm having a little bit of trouble explaining it, because it just came out, you know.
That must blow your mind. I mean, how does the ego react? Do you have those moments where the ego is just like, oh my God, you start identifying with it? Because
Well,
it's hard.
Yeah, we were talking about that earlier. I just think the best thing I can say is I became a much better artist when my ego really went away, you know. Before it was all about, wow, man, I'm really cool. I'm on the Super Bowl sidelines. I'm painting this and that. And wow, aren't I good? And then you start realizing that, you know, it's not me. Like I go back to the garden hose thing. You know, I'm just this physical being on this planet that has chosen or was chosen, however you want to look at it, to be an outlet for this kind of energy, this kind of influence, this kind of, hopefully it affects, life on this planet, leads us towards a more spiritual base kind of a thing. So, art's very powerful, just like music. And I think that, the thing about music, you have to hear it where, you just can't keep playing the same song all the time, where art is on your wall. And it's been really, really wonderful to have people come in this sanctuary here and really literally pull up a chair and just sit for half an hour, and I know that they're probably getting more out of it that was intended, but that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to inspire someone to go in that direction, and what they do with that direction is their own unique experience.
It's healing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hopefully there's some healing going on. Yeah.
So what is for you? Tell us, what is a juicy life? What is living a juicy life for you? What is that juice?
Right now, it's my little 1-year-old son who's walking, he paints with me. He literally, and I'm not embellishing this story, at about 10 and a half months, I was talking to my wife the other day, it's like, it was so cool. He gets up and he just comes over and starts painting and loves it. He knows all the paintings. He knows when I bring a new painting in the house, he goes up, he can't quite talk yet, but he's just all over. He'll get up in the morning and run into the studio and grab his brush and just start painting. I mean, that's juicy. If you want to, you ask me what my version of juicy was, that's it. To sit there and, again, then this is a lot of the part of parking the ego back behind you somewhere. Now, if I get to wake up, enjoy the beauty of nature, enjoy him, enjoy a great meal at the end of a day, get to paint during the day, and have some sort of spiritual, like this today. This is a highlight for me today. This is juicy living, talking about spirituality and my expression through my art. That's about as juicy as it gets.
So what little last piece of advice would you have for people watching this right now and that really want to unleash also or connect to the divine and let it flow through them, whatever it can look like for them?
Well, again, and I've said this probably 10 times throughout this whole interview, is just get out of the way, Don't be intimidated. Whenever I teach, it's just like, there's no right or wrong. That's the thing I'm trying to get. We all have to work through that. You're not, well, there's some extreme, examples of wrong, but, it's just that we all have a divine imprint of, I believe anyway, of what kind of direction we're supposed to go, and just get out of the way and trust that, you're not going to be let down. As they would say, God's got your back, So. That's it.
Thank you. Juicy. You are very juicy. Isn't he juicy? Isn't that awesome? I mean, how cool is that?
And it's very cool what you're doing, going around the country, the world. Thank you. This is the kind of thing that changes the consciousness and the energy of the world, People see this. I don't know how many people are going to see this, but they're going to tell their friends, it's kind of that social media thing. It's just like, wow. That's what's going to save us. Yep.
Thank you so much.
For saving us now.
All right. Okay. Well, let's be together on that journey.
Okay.
Much love, my beautiful co-creators from Colorado.
Yay,
bye. Juicy.